Welcome to the Migrant podcast. I'm Femi, your host and guide in the dynamic world of cybersecurity. Here we dive into insightful interviews, stories, and discussions with industry experts, professionals, and thought leaders. Whether you're just stepping into cybersecurity realm or you're a seasoned veteran, our goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need to thrive. From industry trends to career guidance, success stories, and actionable tips, we cover it all. Before we jump into today's episode, a quick request. If you find the content valuable and think others would too, don't keep it to yourself. Share the Cybersec Migrant podcast and our YouTube channel with your friends, colleagues, and fellow enthusiasts. Your recommendations would help us grow and create a community that fosters learning and collaboration. And now, let's get into the heart of cybersecurity insights. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to this episode of the Cybersec Migrant. Welcome to another episode on the Cybersec Migrant. My name is Femi, and this, like I said earlier, this is an episode where we want to actually shout out in particular all the women, especially immigrant women, who are rocking it, if you will, in the field of cybersecurity. And in honor of International Women's Day, I've got two amazing women to chat with me today. So I've got Nazli Amin Salehi and Dami Olegia, who are invited to the show today. So Nazli and Dami, welcome today to the Cybersec Migrant podcast. And I will want to start with Dami. So Dami, can you introduce yourself to our audience and those who listen at home as well?
Okay, so my name is Dami, and I'm very passionate about cybersecurity, information security, and cloud security. I'm a mom of three, and I came into Canada about 3 years ago. So that's a bit about me.
Thanks, Dami. So 3 years, so you're still a bit green around the edges, not like some of us. And Nazli, what about you? Can you tell us a bit about Nazli as well?
Sure. Hi, my name is Nazli. I'm an IT advisor at one of the public sector, um, I mean, companies here in Vancouver, BC. As for my background, I've studied IT, and then I got one master in MBA IT, and my second master was information security. By that time, I realized, and it was the time that we didn't have Chat GPT, and it was pre-COVID. But I thought that cybersecurity is one of the things that I was passionate about, and I was curious about the algorithms and everything that was happening beside the, the world of net. So that's why I chose that study. And now here at my current job, what I do is that we just make sure that all our systems are secure. I'm particularly in IAM, team that is a sub area of the cybersecurity. We manage identity and access management, which is as we know, based on the zero trust. Model. It's the entrance to each company, and yeah.
Yeah, thanks. That's great. Actually, I wouldn't let the cat out of the bag. I work with Nasli quite a bit, quite closely as well. So Nasli and I work a bit, and zero trust is something we're very interested in as well. And Nasli, you did give us a bit of a background there. 2 degrees, 2 master's degrees. So that's always killing it. I don't have one yet. But so Nasli give us a bit about the background as to why she started to pursue a career in cybersecurity. But I want to throw it back to you, Danny. Can you tell us a bit about why did you choose cybersecurity, eventually, or why here now?
Okay, so quite frankly, my background is actually in project management. But when I came to Canada, I realized that, the motto for Ontario says yours to discover. And I realized that I could be anything I really wanted to be, right? And having been a victim of scam back home, and also I find that I'm very, very technologically savvy. And, during the um, early months of the pandemic, I enrolled in a self-directed learning journey in cloud security, in cloud computing, basically, focusing on AWS. So that kind of gave me an edge, and I realized that, you know what, if I could study this on my own, I can actually do this. And that landed me my previous role where I was like a cloud support engineer. And so that's a bit of my background. However, I became pregnant sometime last year after giving birth. I realized, oh, why don't I just take it a step higher, I went for an accelerated cybersecurity program with the Rogers Cybersecurity Catalyst at Toronto Metropolitan University, and it's been a great learning curve. Before finishing my program, I also landed another role, which I started about a week ago as an endpoint security analyst as well. So that's a bit of my background, but it was more of from a curiosity perspective and also being technological savvy, and then knowing that I could do this, right? And then I went for it.
So that's interesting, Dami. Thanks for giving us that insight. And I was going to throw the same question back to you, Nazli, and sort of say you've given us a bit already, but just tell us a bit more about what made you decide that what I want to do cybersecurity as as a passion.
Yeah, so honestly, after COVID, that was the time that I got really exposed to cloud computing, and I started my consulting job right when COVID started. And then by then, and I mean, unlike Danny, I'm Microsoft gal, so and I got all my certification in Microsoft. So yeah, and again, we can have another discussion about AWS versus Azure. But yeah, so and when I got exposed to, and I mean, as an IT consultant, as a cloud consultant, I got exposed to so many projects, and I was thrown to the project that by that time, of course, security was the first thing on mind. They wanted to migrate, and so many people wanted to just migrate their workload to the cloud, but they had their only concern was security. How does this work? Is the new environment our new data center? Is this going to be a secure um, I mean, space. What about our data, our information security? What are the tools that we can have in place so that we can gather those logs and understand if there are any attacks? And all those conversations were so interesting. That got me to the point that I got really passionate, and I thought that if I even as a consultant, as a professional, as a cloud professional, if you want to start to talk about someone and um, kind of navigate to their cloud journey, you have to have security in mind, and you have to have that capacity to understand and to understand their concerns, and then answer those concerns and with a practical roadmap or a practical experience. So that was kind of a journey for me. And then I got out of consulting job, and that's why I really wanted to have a job in cybersecurity, because I mean it's a I don't know if that's because I do have enough experience that I'm now feeling easy to be in this area, or is it the passion? So I think the both are feeding each other. But I mean, and I was lucky to get this job, and I feel like, and I'm working with family closely, as this is going to be my third month or fourth month. But now that I'm realizing the environment, and it's a very, very big environment, it is consistent of so many pieces. And now that I'm realizing how complex it is, and how we are managing that complex environment with your help. Yeah, so yeah, that was quite a lot of
It is.
explanation.
It is interesting. I think you both had very interesting journeys. Your journey into cybersecurity, and like I was telling someone recently, no one ever has a straight journey into cybersecurity. Everybody's journey starts
No,
somewhere else. Like I think I've said this before
yeah,
in a previous episode. My original degree is in chemistry, and I've got a postgraduate pharmaceutical chemistry. But here I am doing
Yeah.
cybersecurity,
interesting.
so it's a very interesting story. But you also have had you've got something that's unique but still tied both of you together, which is something I want us to talk about. So you've had your journey from wherever you were into cybersecurity. You've had your journeys from your various countries to Canada to get into
Yeah.
cybersecurity. You've had your journeys, and you also are making strides in a male dominated profession. So I was going to
Yeah.
ask you and say, asking both of you, with what you've done with your journeys, how has the experience been? What challenges have you faced, particularly as an immigrant, as a woman, into being able to say, I know this stuff, or I can do what I'm doing and all of that, because it is still a bit of a challenge for many women. So your experiences would help many of those who are listening.
Who wants to take that first? Nazli?
I talk a lot. You go first, Dami.
Okay, Dami. Let's have Dami first.
Yeah, no problem. So basically, for me, I find that I've not really, and I'm being very honest, I've never really seen things from that perspective, right? In terms of course, the margin, yes, it's there. Like on my current team, right? The core um, tech, like security and privacy team, right? I'm like the only female I can think of, right? But I don't see myself, I don't see it in that light. It's about what I bring to the table, right? So if we come for a meeting, I say what I have to say, right? So I've not, maybe if it was somewhere else, like another country, I would have felt some sort of way. But right now, I'm where I am, I'm comfortable that way. However, there are times where I've heard, oh, sometimes some females don't get to this particular level in an organization, or they are not even called to a particular department. But I don't see it that way. And from my personal experience, when my journey to cyber started, I could recall this was even as early as last year, people saying, oh, go to JRC is less technical. And I've spoken to even men that they'd be like, you know your stuffs, right? Just go to the technical bit. Go and be talking CICD, go and be talking DevOps, that kind of thing. You're not supposed to be doing risk management and all of those things. So for me, I feel like I've met a few encouragers in my journey, people who have propelled me. So I've not experienced the flip side. This is me just being honest and being as vulnerable as I can be. So I have a lot of support system, male, maybe my brother, my husband, is my number one cheerleader, my dad, people just pushing me that I can do it. So even also getting to the workplace as well, right? I've not, even on my current team, I've never really felt that way. On my previous role, there are a lot of, females, but on this current role, I've not felt that way.
That's nice. Yeah, one of the lucky few, I think, which is good. And I'm happy to hear that because I think we need more and more workplaces that have that kind of experience because it shouldn't be about, what gender you are or where you come from, but it's about what you can do and what you bring to the table, like you rightly said.
Yes,
But
and that's
let's see,
what
Nazli, what's your experience?
Mine is quite different, honestly. Maybe it's just a cultural background that from the country that I come from. So right from the start, I remember that when I started my job as an IT support, I was the only woman in the IT team of 4 or 5. Um, and I remember that I was, for example, by that time, I mean, there were no cloud, of course, and we had those kind of old school data centers. And I remember that that when I was carrying the servers and also once they purchased a firewall, it was a Cisco something, so I had to carry them. And I remember that gaze from the male colleagues that they were, are you able to lift that up? It was serious. It's so heavy, and I know that they were on the edge of making fun. So, and I mean, throughout my career, there's been so many times that I would just look around and see I'm the only female sitting in a room filled with men, and but then something changed when I immigrated to Canada. Honestly, I feel like Canada, the confidence and also the area of technically and technically and that I mean, I had a manager of my um, she's the one that really to was actually I was on the job at that time, and she told me this job just go if that you as go and so and by I mean after that I got exposed to many work areas, many industries, many projects, but I think that start, that kick, really moved me to the right direction. Um, as a consultant, that was one of the biggest challenges. honestly, you would go to the client, you would go to a room filled up with clients, and clients are usually needy, and they expect you to know everything.
Yeah.
And if there are two consultants sitting in front of them, and one of them is male, they would always put their question towards that male counterpart, and that is, I mean, but I mean, it's not. Sometimes I get emotional and I'm like sad, and I think that why don't you ask that question first? But that got me to the point that I had to really work hard and study harder to have the answer right in front of them, so that they next time they can trust them. And I feel like throughout my journey, I always had to gain the trust. It was never given. You know what I mean? I had to just go on this. Anyway, it's like a journey or a couple of sessions after, and they can trust me. And I know that it's only gender based. I mean, there is nothing else that is going on, because I can see that they sometimes they don't even make eye contact. Um, but fortunately, now that I've landed in this job, I really looked closely when I was applying on who is going to be my manager, what is the culture, what is the cultural background, and that's why I applied for that job, because at some point you get exhausted. How
Yeah,
many
true.
years and years of life do I have to just prove myself and work hard? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
do. I do.
it was quite funny.
Quite interesting. I think what I'm going to say is I know that it's, they say challenges make you stronger, right? So it's that is just a proof of the resilience you've had, because being able to experience all of that and come out stronger, come out on the other side of it is always a good thing. So let's not think of all the negative. Let's start. Share a success story, something, because now you're here. Now you're flying high. You're successful in your career. Give us a success story. Tell us one of your success stories. So one of the moments you're really proud of as a woman, as an immigrant in cybersecurity. That, you know what, I did this and I'm very proud of it.
Okay, so for me, this time last year, this is me being vulnerable. I was pregnant. It was a life-threatening pregnancy, and
Ooh,
in my mind, while I was still there, I was planning. Oh, I want to be able to have so 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 and so certifications, by now. And I feel like my baby is barely 8 months, and I've had those certifications. I've also, changed jobs, right? And another thing on the list for me is I went for the Black Hat conference last year in Toronto. It's called Sector, and I
yeah,
met like amazing people who have become the core part of my cybersecurity network. And why am I saying this? Sometimes they say your network is your network,
network.
right? And for me, I feel like I've built family, and I think that's part of how I met Mr. Femi. It wasn't really at the conference, but it was somebody who also introduced me to him. So that's an example of what I'm saying. So I've achieved quite a lot, sorry, in terms of I've changed jobs. I've gotten a good role where I'm comfortable. I've also gotten two certifications from the SANS Institute. It wasn't easy, I tell you. And
Sounds is
also,
hard.
I'm healthy right now. So yeah, that's about it. And also being able to complete projects as work, and personally also learning on my own, because it's not easy, really. It's an evolving landscape. You can't know everything, and even if you feel like you know it, tomorrow something changes. You have to go and learn again, right? So I'm at that phase where learning never stops, and really, yeah.
That's good. Very interesting. Now, for those who don't know who are listening, Dami and I both come from Nigeria, so we've got that connection as well. And there was something I can relate to when she was speaking, when she said, I've changed jobs, I had my baby. My baby is 8 months. So Dami's baby is 8 months now. It's going to be a lot harder if you were still in Nigeria to change jobs, write a certification, and do all of that. Because the first thing is, you go to a place, you're trying to get a job, and they see that you're pregnant, and that just automatically stops from being a
Yeah,
candidate that they're
sometimes,
going to pick
yeah.
because you're pregnant. Because they're like, we're not going to sit around waiting for you for a year while you're nursing your baby. which is why Canada is so different. So I'm really glad that Canada is one of those countries that is really open to helping you achieve your biggest dreams. It doesn't matter if you're male, female, black, white, wherever you come from. All that matters is
So,
can you do the job, and I'm really happy to see that that's happening. Dami's story is an example, but straight over to you, Nazli, as well. So, and I know there's a lot of success stories from Nazli, but just one of them, just share one of them with us.
Well, one of the back in my consulting job, one of the clients was a BC health sector, and they wanted. I mean, by that time, they were really worried on phishing attacks, on DDoS attacks, and things like that. And they had already as a team, we had made all the workload migrated to Azure. But the thing is that by that time, Microsoft has just launched a SIEM tool that is a security information and event management tool that is a native one that's called Sentinel.
Sentinel.
And that was, yeah. So that was, I mean, back in 2021, that was net new product, and no one in our company knew about that product. So I had to just go and understand, really study how have a pilot of this SIEM tool and have this set up, and then I showcased it to this healthcare provider, and they bought it. I mean, they went with it, and that was quite. I mean, that was a good achievement, because I did it on my own, and then I was able to come up with a cybersecurity solution some sort, because it's not only the logging of that management system, is how the information will follow, and what are the remediations that we put in place. So yeah, that was one of the success stories.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And I know Sentinel was so new, and people were like, "What on earth is Sentinel?" I remember when it first came out, and it's been pretty good. And I think Microsoft is doing a lot in their own space. They can do a lot more. You and I know they can do a lot more. But I'm going to divert a little bit here. I want to digress a little bit and throw you both a question: AWS versus Azure. Which one do you think is better? Quick.
quite frankly, I feel like both providers have their strengths. That's the honest truth.
It's a trick
So
question.
yeah, they both have their strengths really. And so if I meet a client and they tell me, oh, these are my pain points, right? I would prefer solution based on a platform that can solve their problem. So there's one of Microsoft's services that I really love. I love it so much, and it's Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Like I can preach it all day, right? So, but AWS, do they have
Defender.
something that can do that? No, right? So they both have their strengths. They
Yeah.
both have their
Yeah.
strengths, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
Nazli's a Microsoft girl.
honestly, but yeah, but I mean, AWS was always the pioneer of the SaaS solution, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the reason that Azure exists today, and then GCP and other cloud computing platforms, it's because of AWS. So I give you that. But it's interesting that each environment, as Dan said, it's different. You would go somewhere, and they have they have an API that only runs on Google Cloud. So why don't you go to GCP? Whereas, the other one has something that runs better, and it needs more cloud computing resources. For example, it goes to AWS. But I think what is making Microsoft different than other counterparts um, is that because the workload, when they migrate to Azure, they can bring their licenses, that called the bring your licenses to Azure, and they can get some discounts, or even sometimes they pay very much amount, or very less amount of money, or even it's free. So there are so many incentives that Microsoft provides customers, that I think it's making it somehow work better for
Easier?
some companies. Yeah, easier, exactly. And the integration is seamless, right? Because it's the same environment. Some people don't even realize that this machine, this virtual machine, for example, is running in cloud, whereas the on-prem, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's my only
That
point
Yeah,
here.
but AWS also has some very cost trust friendly services as well, right? So especially
Yeah.
when you delve into things like AWS organization, where your billing is consolidated, and for both of them is pay as you go. You don't pay for what you don't use anyway. So again, I think it still boils down to the clients, their pain points, and what
Exactly.
fits them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you
Yeah.
can see both of them spitball, and I didn't tell them I was going to ask them about AWS and Azure, but you can see that they know their stuff. So who says they don't know their stuff? We've said quite a lot of things, and we've really done a lot about both your stories, both Nazli and Dami, and we've seen a few interesting things. I'm just going to round off with two questions. The first question I'm going to ask for both of you, and this is something that I also myself have faced. I've had people ask me this question. I don't know to what degree you both would have experienced this, but how do you cope with imposter syndrome? That's something that's a bit common, particularly with I know I myself, being an immigrant, being a black person. Sometimes I'm like, am I sure I'm supposed to be in this room? Am I sure I'm supposed to be doing this? So how do you deal with imposter syndrome?
Well, that's a huge one, and I think for me, sometimes I have to speak to my subconscious and myself, standing in the mirror that you got this, you can do this. And I would give an example. So I recently wrote one of the GR certifications about 2 weeks ago, and this is something I've been studying for the past 6 weeks. And I get to the end, and I'm like, I wrote. There's a place where you write the practice test, and I'm like, you know what, I can't do this, right? And then I had to hold off everything. Like I couldn't do anything else at home. And I'm like, you've been studying for this. So it took me speaking to myself, speaking back to myself that you can do this, you've got this. You studied like six big books in 6 weeks. So you can do this. So even for example, if I have interviews as well, those are the things that I say to myself to remind myself. I speak to myself that, you've got this. And I feel like that works for me.
It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Well, it's always challenging. Even I mean, even when I want to go to a meeting, sometimes I feel like, do I know enough? Especially when you just start your new job, if you're like, what are they talking about? What is this subject? But at some point, I realized that um, when I start asking questions and when I engage more and when I um, don't sit aside and just, I mean, just sit and watch, it doesn't get easier. So what I found for myself, what I think it works best for me, is to go and engage and uh, start asking questions and just remember that we are all human and sometimes we make mistakes and sometimes we say things that doesn't make sense to anyone, but that's okay. I mean, I've
Yeah,
said so many things that doesn't make sense, and I mean, it's out of context. What the question that I asked, but that's okay. It will pass.
exactly. Yeah, that's true. I think that's the biggest way to deal with it. I always like Dami said, one of the things what I do is if you think that you don't deserve a seat at that table, just look at all what you've accomplished. And that's what I tell people who I tell some of my mentees, people ask me, how do you do that? I'm like, yes, you might think, should you be there? But just ask yourself, look at all what you have accomplished. So maybe I was at an event recently and the person said, keep a brag book for yourself. So all the things you have achieved over time, write it down because sometimes maybe you need to be reminded that you've done a lot of things that you should be proud of. So whenever that wants to kick in, bring out your brag book and read to yourself and say, you know what, I did this and I did that, and I'm very proud of this. So I think it's very important. So kudos to both of you for doing that. Final question, let's just sort of round this or let's sort of bring it back together. You both of you are here, successful careers, doing great jobs, successfully immigrated here. Because we know how challenging it could be for immigrants who moved to Canada at first. I know what it was like for me 6 years ago when I moved here and all of that. So what advice would you give to other people who are, probably just moving here to Canada or thinking about it and wondering, I want to go into cybersecurity, or should I go into cybersecurity? Would I be successful? What advice would you give to them?
Okay, so I'll tell them to dream big, right? The That's the honest truth. The sky is not your limit; it's your starting point.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
secondly, break down your goals or your dreams because, like you mentioned earlier, it's not easy, right? It's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen in 3 weeks. For some people, it might take 3 years, right? So break down your goals and work at it. And the third thing I would say is find your tribe, to be honest, because
Yeah.
no one can do
Yeah.
it alone. So you find your introducers, people who would introduce you to the likes of Mr. Femi, to the likes of Nazli, and find your encouragers, right? There are people who would speak life into you, who would motivate you, who would speak your names in rooms that you never thought you would
Lord.
get to. And fourthly, I would say do the work, right? Do the work. If you have
That's the most important part.
you have anything, right? If you need to do projects, if you need to do things to showcase yourself, to remind yourself your why, this is why I'm doing this is where I'm going to. That's how I'm going to wrap it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Dami. Nazli, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think she said it all, and with the points. I mean, the only thing that I can say, especially to the women in this field, is that don't be scared. You're not less than any man, and if we can do it, you can do it too. Nothing will hold you back. That's it. And all of the things that Dami said, she put it in a very nice way. I
Yeah.
can second that.
That's true. Thank you so much. That was really good. And I've always said this too. I remember growing up because I come from a family where I have four other siblings. I'm the first of five, and all of us are boys except my baby sister, who the very last born. She's a girl, and between the last born and the fourth, I think it's like 8 years. Between she and I, there's like 15 years or something like that. So there's a really huge gap. So my mom used to say then that because I don't have girls doesn't mean you can't work in the kitchen. So even though I was a boy, she was like, many of these things that they tell you it's gender, it's not. It's there's
Mm-hmm.
no law that says it's only a man that can do certain things or only a woman that can do certain things. You can be a man or a woman; it does not matter. You can do certain things. So as long as, like Demi said, as long as it's something you want, it's your dream. As long as it's your dream, pursue it and chase it, and you would get it. And like I said earlier, Nazli and Demi, you both have proved that that's a true story. I want to thank you both for coming on this episode of the Cybersec Migrant. It's been absolutely amazing and refreshing to have you here. I don't think I've had enough female guests. I think I should start getting more female guests here as well. Thank you to both of you. I'm going to put a link down in the description below to both Dami and Nazli's LinkedIn profiles. I'm assuming they are open to connect. That was wrong. I should have asked them, are you open to connecting? So I can put your profiles down below in the
Yes.
description as well. So you can reach out to them. I'm sure they would be, they'll be glad to give you, tips, advice, share their stories if you want them to. And any final words, that you want to say, just final thing before we wrap it up.
No,
Okay,
thank you,
so
Femi. That was great. Sorry, Dami.
yeah, so for me, really, just to echo and re-echo what you're saying, and if there's anyone out there, maybe you've just immigrated from your country, you're finding out to get a job. I'm just here to encourage you that it won't be for a long time, right? It won't be for a long time. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Keep pushing, keep going. You'll definitely get there. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. This has been another episode of the Cybersec Migrant Podcast. Don't forget that you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube Music, or you can follow our YouTube channel on YouTube as well at the Cybersec Migrant. Feel free to reach out to us on social media, either on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram at the Cybersec Migrant. And if you have any suggestions as to what you would like to listen to again, or who you'd like to also talk to, or any area of cybersecurity that you want us to talk a bit more about and shed some light on, feel free to drop us a line, leave us a note down in the comments below, and we'll be glad to do that. Until the next time, it's been your host, Femi, and this has been another episode of the Cybersec Migrant. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Cybersec Migrant Podcast. We hope you found today's insights valuable and inspiring. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to check out our other episodes for more in-depth interviews, stories, and discussions with cybersecurity experts and thought leaders. Remember, the world of cybersecurity is ever evolving, and we're here to guide you through it. Whether you're just starting your journey or are a seasoned professional, there's always something new to discover. And one more ask, don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share the Cybersec Migrant podcast on our YouTube channel with your friends, colleagues, and anyone who's passionate about cybersecurity. And let's build a community that thrives on knowledge and collaboration. Thank you for being a part of our growing audience, and your support means the world to us. Feel free to reach out to us with your feedback, questions, and comments, either on our Twitter handle at Cybersec Migrant or on Instagram at Cybersec Migrant. Keep learning, keep growing, and until next time, this is Femi signing off. Stay secure.